Okay, good evening. Welcome to the council meeting of January 22nd. The District of chosen works to be increasingly mindful of its commitment to have a more inclusive governance with our neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge that our neighboring First Nation governments with whom we are committed to building stronger relationships, the Shea First Nation Territory and the AVICC Nation. With that, we've got an agenda for us. Welcome committee members, welcome members of our community. We've got two PICs correspondence for supplemental information. With that, could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Yeah, go ahead.
Mayor Little, thanks very much. I'm happy with the agenda, but I just want to note that Mr. Herle is here from our contract engineer. And I just wanted to clarify that if there's a point to discuss about his information, we do it during the presentation, or should we find another place on the agenda?
During the presentation.
During the presentation, great.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
I'd move adoption of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we have some presentations. I'd like to welcome William Shea, the Deputy Warden, and Peter Forbes, the Assistant Warden from William Head Institution, to our council chambers. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Henry Shea. I came from William Head Institution, Correctional Service of Canada. I'm the Deputy Warden at the institution. I'm the acting warden right now. So you can tell I have a very strong Irish accent. So yeah, if you don't understand, just stop me and ask questions, okay? So little background about myself. I started as a police officer 27 years ago, and I joined the CSC about 17 years ago. And I started as a correctional officer, and I become a security intelligence officer. I become a correctional manager, assistant warden operations, assistant warden management service. So about 2 years ago, I moved from Kent Institution, which is a maximum security institution, to William Head and become the deputy warden. So this month, because our warden is away, so I'm acting the warden for this month. And the history about William Head Institution, it was established in 1959, I believe. So we started as a minimum security institution, which means that we house those inmates who have the minimum risk to the society, to the public. And in the year of 1974, it became a medium security institution, which means we have those inmates has a higher risk than the minimum inmates. And at that time, because of the risk was higher, so if you have been living here longer, you probably know we had fences, we had razors, and we also had firearms during that time. And we also have 2 security towers around our institution. So at that time, we put correctional officers there, basically just to watch the perimeter, watch the security of the institution. And in the year of 2002, it was decided that we go back to the minimum security institution. And at that time, we had no firearm anymore, and we also took down the fence. Right now, I think we have 8-foot fence around our institution. So the reason we are here today is to basically give you a presentation about that. There's a planning for demolition of our 2 towers. In the past, I think over 22 years, because we're not using the towers anymore, and the condition become very bad right now, and it become a risk to the institution, of course, to the environment. So if you have any questions, just let us know. I will introduce my assistant warden management service, Peter Forbes, and he will give more details about those towers.
Good. Thank you. So I'm Peter Forbes, Assistant Warden Management Services. The Australian accent is real. It's not like the Irish accent we just heard. So part of what is going on at William Head right now is there's a demolition project. It encompasses the 2 towers, but it also encompasses other parts of the institution. A couple of years ago, there was a building project. It was a $7 million build project to build a new maintenance building. And that freed up 4 buildings at the far end of the institution that you can't see from the front gate, but you can see across from Weirs Beach. You can see the 4 buildings. And those buildings are going to be demolished along with the 2 towers. Okay. The 2 towers have not, as Henry just mentioned, have not been in use since 2002. But on the 2 towers there are some cameras, and those cameras will be, the towers will be replaced by a camera tower on each side to house the cameras. We've just recently finished an upgrade to our camera system to increase some of the security in the institution. And the new cameras give us a lot better resolution. They're literally 360-degree cameras, so we can position them. We don't have any fixed cameras anymore. So when those cameras are taken off the towers, they will go ahead and be put on brand new towers specifically for the cameras. There are, with any demolition project, there's obviously environmental concerns, and there are a couple of environmental consultants that are being brought in by Public Service Procurement Canada, it used to be known as Public Works, and also by the main contractor, Stantec. The actual contractor who's doing the demolition is Kinetic. They're also the company that built the new maintenance building, and they've come in and done other projects in William Head. They have a very, very good record. Okay. Because of the demolition of the towers, it's not actually going to start until June, and it will be completed by the end of July. But the building demolition will start actually next Monday. That's when Kinetic will be moving on site to start that work. So if there's any questions, we're happy to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So the one of the major issues that I've invited both Peter and Henry to be here is because those towers will come down. They haven't been operational, as Henry said, for a number of years, but it will be the optics of a tower coming down. And so I appreciate you coming to the community before that they were demolished to tell us about it, and also about there will be increased traffic on the road with Kinetic and Stantec trucks on the road during the demolition phase.
Correct.
So committee, and also, as you remember, I sit on the Community Action Committee, and I meet with Henry and Peter and the warden and others with William Head almost on a monthly basis, and so I can bring your concerns to them. So, committee, do you have any specific questions for either Henry or Peter or both? Go ahead, Councillor Shuka.
Thank you, through you. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and just 2 really basic questions. So the tower and the demolition, or the sites that are going to be demolished, it's probably a mixture of wood and concrete?
The basic structure of the tower is all metal.
Okay.
But there is a wooden platform on top, and basically a little mini house on top that has to come down. The north tower is going to be the most challenging tower because there's not actually a roadway to that tower. There's just a walk path. The south tower is going to be an easy demolition, and there's not going to be any environmental impact.
Okay, great. Sorry, one other question, a really basic one. Marie-Therese has mentioned this, but I'm forgetting. Could you remind us how many inmates are generally at William Head on a regular basis?
Yes, our rated capacity is 200.
Okay.
Currently, we have 107 inmates. Okay, so this is sort of a joke, but we have flexibility with the housing of the inmates to make sure that they're housed in compatible groups. If you've never been to William Head, I would invite you to consider coming in and having a tour. All you have to do is just phone the institution, 3917,000, and ask for the Assistant Warden Management Services, which is myself.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Anybody else wish to ask a question? Go ahead, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I do want to commend the work that you're doing there, as well as the work release program that you have that has been a benefit to our community. I'm not sure if that's still the name of the program or not.
Community service.
Community service.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been fantastic for various aspects of our community, whether it's our parks and trails. A couple years ago, they came and painted the riding ring rails. They've gone out to Camp Bernard and helped out there. I think they do that quite regularly. Helped with some work on the community garden. Yeah, a lot of different things in our community. Appreciate that. So it's very worthy to us, and certainly for these people.
Thank you. That's okay. We also have the Work to Give program, which is you may build those items and donate to the community. For example, they build those toys and give to those people from Ukraine, those kids from Ukraine. They also partner with the I think a local business is called a Salish Rock. So basically, they paint the rocks, and we basically build the boxes for the presentation boxes for the rocks, and they donate those rocks to the children in the hospital. And also recently, the inmates have donated, I think, over $7,000 to local food banks and those organizations. They need help. And consider the inmates only make $5 per day. That's a huge amount they have donated. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
Councillor Pat.
Yeah, I also really appreciate all the work that has come to the community through William Head. But I did have a couple of other questions. So one is on the cameras. Are they going to be monitored like 24 hours, 24/7?
Yes, the cameras are monitored 24/7, and they're also recording cameras too.
Right, okay. I mean, as you know, there was worries in the community about the level of prisoners that are at the prison, and there's been, I know there are some that have been convicted of some pretty serious crimes. So how do you actually decide, say if someone's been convicted of a homicide, decide that they're okay to come to a minimum security prison?
The crime is not the only determining factor, so we need to look
Do you
at.
want to come to the mic just so it's recorded? Thank you.
Yeah, so the crime is not only the determining factor. So as people are serving their times, and we provided programs, basically targeting their areas of when they committed the crimes. So lots of times that programs and will help them to reduce the risk. So we have a very systematic assessment system. Basically, we provide them with programs, and we regularly assess the risk. Usually every 2 years, so we look at their security levels. So lots of people, they actually served a very long time. For example, if somebody committed homicide, usually they will serve like almost 20 years inside of the institution. So when the risk is, we basically look at the 3 areas: their escape risk, and their risk of to the public, and the risk of inside of the institution. Basically, we look at their behaviors. So in those 3 areas, they have to reach low risk for all 3 areas to be in order to be considered to come to the William Head institution. So right now we have a very careful basically selecting process. We connect with the medium security institutions or other minimum institutions. We look into their background, their profile in the past 2 years, if they have done something that would increase their risk. So we have a very carefully selected program to choose those people to come to William Head. And in terms of the security of the institution, and we also have, I have a very strong operational background. That's one of the reasons I come here to William Head Institution. And also that we have, in the past a few years, we have worked on lots of areas basically to ensure the security and the safety of the institution. Some of the areas we have increased, including that, according to Correctional Services of Canada, we're supposed to have only 2 officers basically managing the unit, but for William Head we have 3, so they give us 1 extra staff members. And also, like you said, we have cameras monitoring the perimeter, monitoring the institution, and also recently we worked with the Chosen Fire Department and RCMP. Basically, we look at the responding capacity. When something happens, we think the communication is very important. When something happens, we need to let our community partners know. Then maybe they can go warn some people if it's necessary, and we'll have RCMP to get involved as soon as possible. We are in the risk management business. There's no way we can predict human behaviors, but we're trying to lower the risk as much as possible by basically we constantly look at our procedures, process, and if there's a gap, we'll try to fix as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
Mr. Shea, thanks for that response, and Councillor Epp, thanks for the question. I think that's a big one for the community. I just wanted to mention how I appreciate the institution being involved in the fire chief stakeholder group with others within the community, looking forward or taking care for the future in terms of disasters and problems that get to us. And I was also very impressed. I'm on the Capital Region Invasive Species Partnership, and lo and behold, William Head is involved in dealing with invasive species. So congratulations on that. That's important to us, as those things, of course, can escape.
Thank you.
William Head. But there's been one other concern raised in the community. It keeps coming up, and that's speeding on William Head Road.
Yes.
And there's particular concerns down at the head of, just at the edge of Weirs Beach there, the difficult corners there. And I'm just hoping that you can continue to talk to staff about that issue, if in fact it is your staff that are involved.
Yes, we did.
But it's important to all of us, the safety on that road, and particularly that corner is a difficult one.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to ask any questions? If not, thank you both. Thank you both for coming.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Mr. Herle, our contract engineer, to talk about Central Mountain status update. Welcome, Al. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for giving me this opportunity to come and give you an update on the approval process for the works in the buffer lands and how that impacts the future works in the Central Mountain residential subdivision on the Langford side. As you know, the approval process is governed by a covenant that was put in place at the time when the property was transferred, or just prior to the property being transferred to Machosen, and it governs the things that need to be done before work can happen in the buffer lands, and also before things can happen in Central Mountain residential. So there are 2 triggers in the covenant. They're not allowed to clear, excavate, alter, construct, build, or undertake any development of any kind in the Central Mountain residential, that's the Langford side, until a stormwater monitoring station is constructed on Machosen Creek. That's been completed since April 2021, and we've been collecting data on that. That's our baseline data, so that we will know in the future whether or not the work, whether or not the pond and other facilities are actually working as intended. So that trigger has happened. So that gives them the ability to do certain works in the on the Langford side, clear, excavate, alter. Basically, they can clear trees, they can do earthworks, but they can't build any pipes or roads, houses, that kind of thing. That doesn't happen until after they have done their stormwater management plan, designed the pond on the buffer, in the bufferlands, and subsequently built it. And so there's a lot of things that need to happen before that second trigger happens, which allows them to start building the Center Mountain residential subdivision up the hill. And these next 7 slides are going to go through that in a bit of detail. So step 1 is the technical report, which I think you're familiar with. That gives the broad parameters of what they intend to do, written, in engineering ease, with lots of computer printouts. It tells us things like, one of the most important things is how much volume the pond needs to hold in order that when it's released at a regulated rate, that it will not create more flow into Chosen Creek and Bilston Creek than what those 2 creeks are experiencing today. And also how to maintain the water quality as well as the quantity. This report has been submitted. It's been revised a couple times. The last one we received, I think, in October. It's generally acceptable in the broad calculations that it contains. So things like where water will be directed and how big the pond needs to be. It still has a few minor additions that it needs before it's acceptable. It hasn't been approved by Machosen. The next step is the preliminary design. And this, when we get it, will give us a much better idea of what these facilities will actually look like. For example, the technical report tells us how many cubic meters of water the pond has to hold, but the preliminary design will give us a better idea of what the footprint will look like, how deep it'll be, how much earthworks is going to be required, how many trees will need to be cut down in order to make room for the pond, how they will renaturalize it, that kind of, still not the details, but the broad picture of what it'll look like. That is underway by CMR's consultants. They've done some topographic survey out on the site, but we have not received any documentation from them yet beyond what was in that original report. Another very important step is going to be the agreements that will govern the facilities. Construction management, we have to discuss and agree with Langford and CMR how construction will be prosecuted through the construction period, who will operate it and maintain it. That's with the City of Langford. Who will bear any liabilities associated with it. We've made it very clear that Machosen is not going to be on the hook for any of the maintenance or liabilities. Langford has given us a letter of assurance that they understand the same thing that we do, but the actual nitty-gritty of the agreements has to wait until we know better what exactly the facility is going to look like. So after those things are in place, then we get into the real nitty-gritty, the detailed design. That will be a set of, I'm guessing, 10 to 20 detailed engineering drawings produced by engineers, landscape architects, and environmental consultants that will give us all the details of what the pond will look like, where all the dirt's going to go, and what trees are going to be planted well, what trees are going to come down, what trees are going to be replanted, what kind of environmental mitigation technologies they're going to use, what kind of environmental enhancements they're going to provide, treatment technologies and best management practices, and a construction access plan. And this all must be reviewed and approved by Machosen. And when that, I'm assuming that that's probably going to take some time and some back and forth to get to the point where we actually accept those detailed designs and we know exactly what is being proposed to be built. Then we give them approval to start the pond construction. And that's when they move into the buffer lands. Before that, they don't do any work in the buffer lands at all, other than possibly some test holes and topographic survey, that kind of thing, but no physical construction. And all the stuff in those 20 drawings gets built, and the landscape is restored. Once that's all done, we have another step of actually approving the finished product. It will be inspected, deficiencies identified, and then deficiencies will be rectified, and then finally, final approval will be given for the pond when it is in a fully functional condition. And that is the trigger that satisfies the covenant and allows the Centre Mountain residential construction to begin. Even after the approval, monitoring and maintenance is an ongoing requirement to ensure that the pond is meeting the design goals. And then and only then, the residential construction on Centre Mountain can begin. And of course, what everybody wants to know, myself included, is what's the timeline for all of these approvals? Well, there isn't one. It's going to take as long as it takes to get it right. We have not committed to Langford or to CMR or anyone else that we will approve it by a certain date. And that's all I've got. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, committee. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Herle regarding the approval process, design? Go ahead, Councillor Gray and Councillor.
I don't actually have a question for Mr. Herle, but I did want to make a statement sort of building on our land acknowledgement you made earlier. I received a phone call from Chief Russ Chips of the Shannon Nation on Friday, and he called about the buffer lands. Everyone will recall that Machosen signed the reconciliation agreement in 2017 with Shannon Nation and the City of Langford. And as a result, Machosen's ending up with Section 2500 Acrewood, Section 20 and Section 95 to be held by Machosen for conservation in perpetuity. And we also have the buffer lands and then some tax income from Langford going forward. The Shannon Nation ended up with an interest in land in Langford to be used for an industrial park right next door to the development we're talking about tonight. And as I understand it, Shannon Nation have no financial interest in the Centre Mountain residential. However, they meet regularly with Langford officials, engineers, and others in relation to their development of the industrial areas, and have heard about our concerns about the engineering of the detention pond. And I think Chief Chips and Shannon Nation want to see the best stormwater management system possible for Centre Mountain residential, but he wanted to be sure that we not delay the planned development unnecessarily, and he asked that I convey the message to Council this evening.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Little. Mr. Herle, thank you very much for your report. A few questions. So if things go well in terms of the process, in terms of building the detention pond and understanding all the plans and any sense of timelines around that? I mean, you address it briefly, but...
I don't. I've asked the consultants for a timeline that they're aiming for.
Okay.
And they have been pretty cagey about that.
Yeah.
not sure entirely why, but they haven't given it to me. If I was speculating, which is dangerous, I might think that they would want to start construction on the residential, the larger part of the residential subdivision, 2025.
Okay.
But that's just speculation on my part.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the presentation you made right now indicates that the stormwater detention pond will be built before they can begin work on the residential side.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So one or two other questions. So Mr. Herle, this council on September 11th passed a resolution, part of which was to convey to CME in the city of Langford that the stormwater system, the CME stormwater system or CMR stormwater system, must incorporate advanced water quality measures and best practices into the overall system in terms of water quality. What's your sense of how they're doing on that?
They have committed to doing that. I'm really not an expert on what technologies are available, so we put out a request for proposals to consultants who could maybe give us some guidance on what would be appropriate. And unfortunately, we didn't get any responses to that request for proposals.
Okay.
So we haven't given up on it, but we're going to have to maybe cast the net a little bit wider to find an expert consultant to help us with that.
Okay. And, sorry, Mayor Little, just in reviewing the 3 plans that have been put forward or technical reports that have been put to us, we have seen a change and a bit of an improvement in terms of, well, I won't even say an improvement, but a responsiveness to our concern about what can be done to make sure that the water entering the stormwater pond is actually of as high a quality as it can be, given that it's rainwater. So, for example, we have a mention of a bioswale now. But the one thing that I feel like it gives me a little pause to, think this is really, really good news is there's really not much information about the size of the bioswale, nor is there's mention of oil and grit separators, but it's not clear how many there would be. And I noticed in the letter from the city of Langford, there's mention actually of just one. Oil and grit separator is not plural, it's just, there's mention of one. So I urge some caution around that. And, if I can, I'll speak for myself, but I feel like it maybe echoes the sentiment at this table is, I think the district, and thank you very much for your work on this, are interested in working cooperatively with the developers to achieve the best outcome for the creek, for the environment, and especially downstream at Woody's Lagoon, not to mention all the people along Bilston Creek as well. So again, I feel like when this issue first arose, there was a lot of shock, if I could say that, and surprise, but we've moved, I think, as a community to just wanting to make sure it's done well. And again, thank you very much for your help in doing that. And
You're welcome. And to go back to your original question is, I agree that there are a lot of questions that still are not answered in that. But that first report was not really meant to answer all of those questions that you very justifiably have about how many oil and grit separators, how big is the bioswale. Hopefully we'll get a better idea of that in the next submission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Donaldson?
Yes, thank you very much for this update. I'm echoing what Councillor Shukin is saying, but I have a couple of other questions. It isn't just the CMR that is a concern. They've done a great deal of clear cut through the whole property, including the industrial, so the creek is further up in the watershed. So I know that there's already a water monitoring box at one part of the property. I have no idea where this pond is going to be located. So we've talked about the flow, and that may be a flow monitoring box. I don't know about water quality other than Right now, there are about 4, maybe 5 detention ponds on the Langford side, as they are already constructing not the houses, but clearly they've taken trees down, they're blasting and drilling daily. Roads are going in, infrastructure's already going into the ground. Parts of that are in the statutory right-of-way of the buffer lands. But the concern also of the community is, will that one pond be sufficient? Will it only be for CMR, or will it actually encompass waters that come through the watershed in the industrial park, which borders all of the bufferland property, and which all drains into Machosen Creek, which eventually is Billston and out to the lagoon. So the water quality, quantity, and location of ponds, there's so many things right now. And the construction has started, it's just not the build of houses that has started. So there's things already coming through, and I don't know who's monitoring any of those things. Do you have any insight on that?
Well, there's a number of questions in there. Maybe the biggest one is about the industrial part. Unfortunately, there is no covenant governing that part of the construction. The covenant is specific to the residential, and the pond that we're talking about is also specific to the residential. Now, Langford does have, like every municipality does, have regulations regarding discharge of stormwater from development sites, and a very basic tenet is that they have to do something to reduce or to limit the post-development flows to pre-development levels. In Langford, they call it their bylaw 1000, and I'll choose my words carefully, but I'm sure that we don't have the ability to enforce Langford's bylaw on that property. We have to trust that they are enforcing it, and we have no reason to believe that they aren't. So Langford's standard bylaw should cover the basic water quality and quantity issues coming off of the industrial property. They don't get a pass just because it's not covered by our covenant.
And one more question. Do you know how long the bioswale is? Is it the whole length of the base of the CMR property?
I don't know at this point. That hasn't been given to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Epp, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I don't really have a question. I just thank you for your presentation, and it's nice to know that Machosen has the opportunity to improve the process along the various steps. So hopefully we can that will really help to get things done properly. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I just maybe could ask Al a couple of questions. I also received a phone call on the weekend from Peter Ferguson, the project manager at Cinder Mountain Residential. And and I just wanted to clarify that these things are accurate, what he was telling me, that we got the technical report went to both Machosen and Langford, that we reviewed, it was reviewed by Colquitt's Engineering for Machosen and Langford. And then CMR made changes, and the subsequent plan was then approved by Colquitt's. So they did it, and then he got it back and took a look and said, that's good.
Correct, yes.
And then my understanding is that the plan now, that's the technical report, meets the standards of Langford and Machosen stormwater management bylaws, in fact, both bylaws. And that's what apparently Mr. Howard used them both when he gave his comments.
That's correct. The things that are still outstanding are a couple of the best management practices regarding water quality, bioswales, etc. Those are actually above and beyond both Machosen's and Langford's bylaws. But they have verbally committed to them anyways, and also in general terms have committed in their report.
Yeah, that's what I understood as well. And so they're addressing our requirements for pre and post development flows. That's part of that work.
Yes.
The plan provides for boosting summer flows to Machosen Creek if needed.
Yes.
that they've committed to use green infrastructure to address water quality alongside the more traditional tools, the oil and grit separators.
Yes.
And their plan is to use the bioswales, which we've been advocating for. And they're committed to CRD stormwater management best practices. And then they need to follow the compliance of the BC Ministry of Environment. So,
Yes.
so most of it seems like most of the things that we've talked about at this table are accepted by the developer at the moment. And then,
Yes.
and then you have the outstanding question of, as we say, what make up the best practices in the green infrastructure side of things.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah. So what Mr. Ferguson was telling me is that they're hoping to get Machosen's approval for the technical report. Sounds like there's a little bit more work to do there before that's done.
Well, there was a semantics issue, I think, in that they're calling their technical report a stormwater management report, and the covenant makes specific reference to a stormwater management report, but they aren't exactly the same thing. The stormwater management report, as envisaged in the covenant, includes the detailed design of the pond. So we've had that instruction that we don't use the phrase approving the stormwater management report, just to make crystal clear that nobody thinks that's an open door to start thinking that the covenant has been satisfied.
Understood.
Yeah.
It seemed like when I spoke to Mr. Ferguson, he was pretty clear about that too. He said that, if we approve the technical report, then that would allow him to get on with the detailed reports that you mentioned tonight. And he said that we're not giving up any rights of approval because we will receive all the detailed plans, and our approval for all of them is required. Each one is required. He said Machosen has the hammer. And I guess he was just looking for that. But most of that kind of relates to this idea of not delaying inordinately, and I don't think we have been delaying inordinately. We're just working along with them. That's my impression. But I'm a little bit concerned that the council's become more involved than we should in terms of, that old saying about council should have their nose in but their fingers out, or council should stay out of the kitchen. It's really up to staff to work on those things. So it sounds like you're working well with people, and I thank you for the presentation, and it looks like we're getting there. I have a motion to make though, but that after we're finished with all the questions.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Go ahead.
And I just want to thank Mr. Herle again for clarifying and being attentive to the semantics, because that was my concern as well, is that we give an okay to the technical report and then it's interpreted as giving the okay to the overall stormwater management plan. So thanks very much for being attentive to that. And so you're great.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, with that, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to make a motion just about this. I'm feeling that we have a new CAO, we have a highly qualified engineer, we've got the technical report, is being reviewed and worked on by the qualified and specialized engineer, and he signed it off. And now I feel like it's time that our CEO take over the project and the approvals and such. So I move that we direct our CEO to take over the approval process and provide regular briefings to council on the project's progress in public, in accordance with the standards already expressed by council and our advisory committees, and as required by the covenant. And I'll speak to that, and I believe I may ask our administrator to speak to it as well.
Second. The motion seconded. Go ahead.
So I just think that we're kind of in all these details when we don't know much about the details, and things like the depth of the pond and the footprint of the pond and these things. I just don't feel that those kinds of issues need to come to council so much as be dealt with by our staff, and whatever resources they need, including the motion we made a little while back about bringing in somebody to deal with the best practices, as we're able to find somebody to do that. But, and I wonder if through the chair I might ask our CEO to just talk to the motion.
Bob, did you want to speak to this motion?
Thanks, Mayor, and the council. So the staff have the wherewithal to provide rigor to the process and confirm that the reports and the studies and their plans all conform or, you know, are even better than the regulatory regime of the province and MOE. So that's our job as staff. And second to that, and it's a good comment, is that we can report regularly on the progress, such as Al has done tonight. Very well done, Al, by the way.
Thank you.
And he has my full support. And so we'll keep the engines moving on that kind of regime.
Been a little through you to Mr. Payette. Mr. Payette, I actually, having heard Al today, Mr. Herle, seeing the progression that he's prepared to go through, I've got now a great deal more confidence in how the process is unfolding. And would it do anything or help to have you do extra? Like you're already managing staff, and I don't know if Councillor Gray's motion is actually going to help the process or do anything with it, or to improve. So, but my question to you is, do you think Councillor Gray's motion is necessary in terms of keeping the process going and improving it?
Not necessarily. But
that's maybe not a fair question.
Not necessarily. It doesn't hurt to reiterate.
Okay.
And to kind of remind council that, you know, we're not going through public hearings. We're going through presentations to council and updates on how the progress is going.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to the motion? One more, go ahead.
I think I'm going to vote against the motion. I feel like the process has been actually established over the months, and I have to disagree. I don't think that council is getting into the details. If you look at the September 11th resolution, it's very broad stuff, very broad concepts, reflecting broad and deep concerns in the community, but I don't think we're getting into the details as well. Sorry, we're not getting into the details. And Mr. Payette already has management over staff and consultants, and I really do appreciate Mr. Herle's update, and it would be great to get more as on a timely basis and when there is more to report. So I think I'm going to vote against the motion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Councillor F, go ahead.
Well, I support the motion. I think there has been so much conjecture and worries about all the different information that we've been getting, that I think the process as tonight, which is probably the clearest that we've had to date on what's going on. And I think that the idea of just having these type of reports and allowing staff to do their jobs would be a really valuable way to move forward, instead of all the I know residents have got so many concerns about what's going on. I think this is a much better process, so I will be supporting the motion.
Also, I agree that I don't think council has been in the weeds on this one. Tonight's presentation cleared up a lot of things for me, so thank you, Mr. Herle. I wasn't sure where we were in the process and had not received any information, so updates from the CAO, and I know the CAO has already met with the engineer in the last 2 weeks that he's been here, so I appreciate that. So I'm not in favor of the motion, because as the CEO said, it probably isn't going to be very effective anyways, but I have full confidence in staff and the CAO to update us when is necessary. Go ahead, Councillor Shukin, or Donaldson, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Herle. I appreciate this update. It comes on the heels of much work that was done by a citizen group, which was the Buffer Land Working Group, which did ask a lot of questions, and some of them were prickly. A lot of that does come from our community, who is very concerned. So not being in the weeds at all, but asking legitimate questions, because it affects not just one neighborhood, but the whole community. So I do appreciate the work that you've done, and the staff before us as well, and that they continue doing the work as they've been assigned to do. So I too will not support the motion.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Motion defeated. Any other questions for Mr. Herle? Or do you have any questions, Mr. Payette, that we need to hear at this one? I think we've got a clear idea of where we are in the approval process, what needs to be done. We've been given assurances from Langford and from the engineers and our contract engineer. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Thanks, Mayor. Maybe I do have, not so much a question, Al, but I don't want to put you on the spot. But in my kind of review of this files to date, and then your comments tonight, it just seems to me that if Langford has agreed to maintain the system in perpetuity, that it would behoove them, right, maybe not that's the best word, but it's the word that came to mind, to size the system appropriately. Otherwise, their maintenance would be very costly in the end.
Yes.
So to answer some of the questions of council, size and numbers of filters and whatnot, it seems to me that they would want to hit that mark pretty close at the beginning or reap the problems down the road. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Go ahead.
Mayor Little, I just want to put a thank you into Ms. Tarnowski as well, because she was managing and helping Al, and was, I think, probably responsible for setting this up, because we had talked about it in November when she was still interim CA. So thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we have time for public participation. If you wish to speak at the microphone, if you could identify yourself, you have 4 minutes, and the road you live on.
Thank you. Mark Atherton, Levon Road, and also past chair of the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee, Advisory Select Committee, and I'm saying that in my introduction because it's relevant to this presentation. So I'm here to talk about the respectful work policy and propose an alternative approach to it. First of all, let me tell you, I love you guys. I love you. You're doing a fantastic job. It's a tough job, and I respect the work that you're doing. But I'm calling you out as bullies. Each and every one of you is a bully. I'm saying that because of the respectful work policy is a bullying type of document. Bullies aren't always aware that they're doing bullying behavior. That aspect isn't included in the policy, but that's life experience, that bullies don't know what they're doing. In the workplace policy, all classes that are described in the scope of the policy, including council members, management, and employees, have a responsibility to call out bullies. If you've signed the policy, you have to you've signed it that you will comply fully. Therefore, you are responsible for your own calling out your own behavior as bullies. I have a personal interest in the policy because I refused to acknowledge in the signature declaration that I would read and certify that I understood the policy. I'm not a bully. I've worked 20 years in Parks and Trails. I've been recognized by the community as a volunteer of the year. I'm not a bully. Nobody's accused me of being a bully. Yet the policy has an approach that everybody in this community that is an employee or a volunteer or a member of council starts from the starting point that they need to be managed as a potential bully or harasser. So I refused to sign it. That resulted in you guys meeting in a closed meeting to discuss my refusal to sign. You didn't invite me to participate in that. You didn't invite me to give my point of view. And the result of that was you disqualified me for future appointment to, or reappointment in this case, to an advisory committee. I'm okay with that outcome. I don't need to be appointed to an advisory committee. You have the authority under the community charter to appoint to advisory committees or to rescind appointments. And I accept that, but I personally find it humiliating that that I was not given the opportunity to make my point of view for a document that is inherently bullying. So one would think that the district has an epidemic of people that are bullying and harassing, and you need to reach out and control them somehow. So I'm calling you as the bullies because collectively you approved this policy. Presumably you understand it too, because there's a signature block for council members. Presumably you understand it. Once I took a personal interest in this policy, I did read. It's incomprehensible. Nobody can understand that. It is poorly drafted, it is contradictory, it has errors of omission, and it's on your agenda tonight, which is what motivated me to come out tonight. It doesn't say why the policy is on the agenda again. My only hope is that you're here to rescind it, or at least put it on hold so it can be reworked. So why do I say it's a bullying policy? It's because you engaged in institutional bullying by threatening sanctions and censure by council. You impose annual training requirements. You require written confirmations, and stating appointments may be terminated. Now, why would you do that kind of language? Why would you extend that to volunteers? It's incomprehensible. Council members are expected to model inclusive, respectful, and professional behavior and not participate in bullying, harassing, or discriminating behavior. So you introduce this policy, you try to extend it to advisory committees and all the members, but you don't consult with that advisory committee, any of those advisory committees ahead of time. Is that inclusive? Is that professional? If you brought this to the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee, I would have been able to point out all these deficiencies in the policy. They are tremendous deficiencies. So is that a model of inclusive, respectful, and professional behavior? I don't think so. I don't think so. We were advised individually in the emails that came to us and subsequent discussion that this policy is required by WorkSafe BC's occupational health and safety regulations. It isn't. The safety regulations don't even mention this. And if they did, it would be for employers and employees, not volunteers. Volunteers are not covered by anything. We were further advised that the policy was legally reviewed by your somebody with legal training. Although it's demanded that we sign this policy, no advisory committee member, no volunteer has been offered legal advice to review this thing from a advisory committee volunteer's perspective. Now, that's a tremendous power imbalance, and I just can't comprehend why you would approve this policy as a council. So it's a poorly written document, inconsistent and administratively burdensome. We try to extend it to volunteers. There's volunteers all over this community. Volunteers are informal. They come together for common purpose. They sort of like a flock of birds go in one direction or another. It's a workplace policy. Volunteers don't operate in the workplace. Volunteers don't provide work. They provide a service. They're not subjected to your management authority. They're self-regulating. It's incomprehensible to me why you're doing this when you for the employees when you when they are under a master agreement with Canadian Union Public Employees. The policy is inconsistent. In fact, it breaches that agreement. That agreement says they will not sign, and you will not ask them to sign any other form of agreement. Why would you pick a fight with your union? I understand the volunteer firefighters already have some kind of respectful policy for their operations. We rely upon volunteer firefighters. Why would you risk the current cadre of volunteers and recruitment of future volunteers by subjecting to them to this disrespectful policy. I don't think you have management authority over advisory committee members or volunteers, but you do have a bylaw that establishes the setup for advisory committees. That bylaw is wonderfully written, wonderfully written. One of the clauses in that bylaw says that council may establish and amend additional procedural rules for advisory select committees through the district of the chosen council procedural bylaw. Now, I'm unaware of rampant bullying and harassment in advisory committees. If there is, surely it can be dealt with on a one-off basis. I know Parks and Trails is a wonderful group of people. They work for a common purpose. They give you good advice. So why would we risk our relationship as a community with our employees, our volunteers, and advisory committee members? So I propose an alternative approach. I know I'm getting near 4 minutes, but 20 years of volunteer service to the community buys me an extra minute.
Okay.
So repeal the policy. Repeal the policy. It conflicts with the PPE agreement. It does not apply to volunteers and members of advisory committees. Is bullying and administratively burdensome. You're gonna drag in everybody every year to have a refresher training on something that is not required. But more importantly, it's a 14-page document. WorkSafe BC has policy guidance in this sort of thing. They have it boiled down to 1 page. Nobody has to sign it. It's just posted. It simply says bullying won't be tolerated. Harassment won't be tolerated. And along with that, you have any amendments you might want to make to the procedural bylaw for advisory committees. So that's my proposal, that that you get rid of it. It's useless. It's contradictory. It's disrespectful. It's a respectful workplace policy that's disrespectful, inherently disrespectful. So take a time out. I don't know what is on the agenda for later tonight, but take a time out. Consider my comments. Consider that a lot of people have signed that policy without reading it. They just simply think it's another piece of bureaucratic nonsense. Sign it, get it off the table. I would not sign a statement that said I understood, because it would be a false statement. It'd be more accurate now that I understand that it's not understandable. But at the time, I just regarded it as nonsense. Be respectful of our employees and volunteers. Don't alienate them with an overzealous approach to solving an uncommon problem. If there is a problem, identify it. Consider an individual approach to change some unacceptable behavior. There's that old acronym, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Now, in closing, I want to say I'm not attempting any sexual harassment by saying I love you. And I said KISS. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Robin Tunnicliffe, 565 Wooden Road. I'm just stepping up to tell you guys about the South Island Farmers Institute. It is a groundswell that has started on the peninsula of small-scale holders of all, from all the sectors. And they kind of come from nowhere, and we're all really proud of them, because we'd kind of given up on millennial farmers, that they were all going to farm from YouTube and sell online and we wouldn't really see them again. But here they've gone and created one of our traditional forms of learning, a Farmers Institute, an official Farmers Institute. And they've kind of just done it on their own. They have launched these really innovative learning series, and one of them, John and Lorraine just spoke at last week. They call it the Founder Series. So it's the young farmers wanting to learn from the old farmers' experience. Whoa! And they're having all these workshops on, what does farm insurance actually mean, and what does it mean to smallholder farmers? Collective pricing, how does this work? How do you set prices? What does this mean for our livelihoods? All sorts of really creative thinking that's gone on. And they are putting on a full day farmer to farmer workshop. So Farmer to Farmer used to be a workshop series, and it was well funded by the CR Fair and the Ministry of Agriculture. And for some reason, they've just opted not to give any money to the Farmers Institute. So these young farmers, I'm quite close to them because some of them are my farmhands. They're just going ahead and doing it. They have no money. They've been pulling together on a shoestring. They fundraised by selling cover crops to each other. They're doing all sorts of cool things, and I just really commend their efforts. A lot of them are very excited about Machosen. They want to come here to farm, and I am really hoping that they can find some traction here. And I think as a community, we want them here. What a great news story. So they've come to you with two asks, and I thought I would present them. One is they want some municipal councillors and a mayor to participate in a forum in the morning on February 15th, and it's a municipal plenary session where they want everybody across the region to speak about policies that might help young farmers get started. And then another ask was any funds that might be available. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, and I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, but Canada is famous around the world for our smallholder agriculture. And most notably, the Sandwich Peninsula is known all through Europe as a model for small-scale commercial production. In the 90s, Brent Warner got together with the Direct Farm Marketing Association and pulled everyone together. So our region is known around the world as a model for successful agriculture. So I think it's something we should really be proud of, and the peninsula and the whole region is known. And I think that, agriculture is this low-hanging fruit that climate change, economic development, all of these, silos can come together. And so if there's any funds available that could be just tossed to the South Island Farmers Institute, their official Farmers Institute, so they can receive funds, they'd really appreciate it, and they really want to come and meet you guys. So just be ready for these good energy young folks that are excited about farming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Neil West, Leafield Road. I didn't come here tonight with the intention of speaking. I came here because I thought you guys might have questions when you start discussing Holly. But I got to say something. I was a safety officer at the Queen's Printer for 10 years, and I had to deal with this kind of stuff with your respectful workplace stuff on a fairly regular basis. And I can tell you from experience, my experience and my opinion, of course there's going to be other opinions, that pieces of paper are useless. If you want to build respect among people, you have to show them respect. It has to be earned. You can't threaten people and get respect. You can intimidate them, you can threaten them, but that is not the same as respect. When I first came here, I got on the safety committee as a safety officer because I got hired as an industrial first aid attendant. And it was a ridiculous situation because I was a temp. And because I'm an industrial first aid attendant, the day I walked through the door, you're a safety officer. Now think about that one. You really think a guy that's a temp's going to lock horns with management? I had to put, I had one guy say to me, well, so what does that mean? You put Band-Aids on paper cuts? No, I treated a guy that has hands stuck in a press. I treated guys that had third-degree burns from lead, because we were still using linotypes in those days. And I came to the conclusion that the pieces of paper tend to be something that management get to hide behind. You have somebody come in and say, oh, it's a print shop, pretty dangerous place. Oh yeah, but look at all their pieces of paper. And you go to the safety committee, and month after month after month, you'd be saying, hey, we still haven't got the safety guard on the press, that you can't legally operate unless there's a guide on, unless there's the safety guard on it. But we have to use that press for a specific job to service the house, so the guy'd have to work on it. So I realize that doesn't apply here, but what I'm trying to say is they had all the pieces of paper in the world to make them look like they were doing a wonderful job, and I could go on and on and on with examples. Some people take their signature very seriously, and I'm one of those guys, and it sounds like Mark is as well. I'm not going to, you created a legal, I worked on legislation, that was our primary purpose for working at the Queen's Printer, was to service the House. So I edited acts, and to make sure all the commas are in the right place. And all. You guys didn't even bother to do that. There's words that run together, so I'd like to know what the legal word definition of some of these words are, because you're making it appear like a legal document, and it wouldn't hold up. Anyway. But I hope Bob has taken a look at this thing, because it says in there, if you don't sign this, you're fired. Well, that is in complete violation of your CUPE contract. So to me, okay, you're not doing it for the CUPE employees, because it doesn't apply to the CUPE employees. It says right in their contract, Section 6, because I downloaded it. I'm a former CUPE member. I'm a former GU member, ITU, International Typographical Union, as well as the IWA. So I downloaded their contract. It says, Article 6, you can't sign any other deal that conflicts with ours. Well, it either is the same, so you're just doing it for no particular reason, or it conflicts, one or the other. And I actually I talked to the CUPE rep that I know, and he says, it sounds to me like they're trying to get rid of somebody that's a problem. And I said, yeah, well, but I can tell you it's so vague. I mean, I got charged with telling a woman to F yourself, bugger off, and they almost fired me. But when they found out, no, the woman had already yelled expletives at me first, they just went, oh, okay, no problem. They didn't go to her and try and charge her with anything. And then when her union rep, which is another woman, yelled expletives at me as I'm walking out with some of my buddies, no charges to her either. So there's a power imbalance here. It just really grips my stuff. That you guys are trying to tell me, I know Mark quite well. You guys are trying to tell me I can't have I can't have a conversation with Mark. Hey, Mark, stop being a bit of an arsehole, okay? And we can have a laugh. No, if somebody overhears it, they're obligated to lodge a complaint with you guys. They don't have a choice. Or they could get fired for not launching the complaint. Read your document, Jay. It says it right in there. If you witness something and you don't address it, you could get fired, as far as dismissal. So maybe you need to read the document. I've talked to a few people who said, I haven't read it, but who cares? But I'm just going to sign it. It's not worth fighting over. But then I've also been told by somebody on council, oh, it's been endorsed by everybody. Well, signing it because you just don't want to be bothered with the hassle of not signing it and isn't the same as endorsing it unless you're using a very different dictionary than me. So I would strongly urge you, like for me, I'm not going to volunteer for an organization that says, oh, just so you know, you got to sign on the dotted line that you're not a jerk or you can't be on our committee. Well, then stuff it. I'm not going to play a game like that. That's ridiculous. You're treating people that are trying to help your community like, okay, well, you're guilty until proven innocent. So until you can prove you're a jerk, even if you prove after 20 years like Mark did, you're not a jerk, you better sign this or we're going to say until further notice, you're a jerk. Or, whatever. So I wasn't going to speak tonight primarily because I don't want to screw my things up with Miss, because I don't want to piss you guys off at me. However, I can't watch a guy like Mark after all the work I've seen him do in the parks with Misk. And when I walk across the bridge, him and a bunch of guys, volunteer labor built that bridge down towards Albert Head Lagoon. And you're going to treat them like that? It really disappoints me. So I would suggest, Brendan and I have a code of conduct right up on the wall. And it says, please be respectful. And underneath it says, the undersigned, Brendan Neil West, cannot sign any other code of conduct or workplace thing because that supersedes this one. So I won't be able to be on any of your committees because I can't sign it. I've already signed one that says I can't. So that's my thing, okay?
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak tonight?
Hi, Beth Bacon, the chosen resident. I just have 3 quick things to say. In response to the very good presentation that we had from Herle, I strongly recommend that they keep working to find the best up-to-date professional on quality of water. And there's lots of new science there, so somebody really needs to be up-to-date on what they're discovering. And just a possible lead would be the Boker Creek, the Friends of Boker Creek. They've been in the news quite a bit. They found that AstroTurf is really, really bad in the water. And guess who has a lot of AstroTurf? Could we say to Langford, we don't want the pollution from AstroTurf. Can you have no AstroTurf in this subdivision? It's still early enough to make that requirement. And yes, we don't have it in our rules because it's new science. It's newly discovered. The other thing in the news just recently is what comes off car tires, and that needs to be tested for. So I'm sure that they could get it right with the flow and the quantity and the size of the retention pond, and that's all sort of engineering stuff that's already known. But the pollutants, the quality of the water, that's new science, and we have to get the best information we can. I'm halfway through reading Water Always Wins by Erica Guise. I recommend it, and I really like that you've taken the approach that we're going to have more education on water, and I think that's the big topic. There's wars, there's disease, and then there's water resources. Those are the big topics in the world today, and they go from international, national, and local. And this gal, Erica Guise, happens to live part-time in Victoria. I went to her lecture at AVICC. Alison Leduc went too, and we bought her book. Very informative. It's called Water Always Wins, Thriving in an Age of Drought and Deluge. And it's very up-to-date, and she's traveled the world and found all the best examples for controlling flood and having groundwater recharge and having clean water for people and not running out of water. I would love it if you could contact Erica Guise and get her here to do a talk. The Chosen Foundation already had her do a Zoom. I don't know many people that attended it, and I missed it, and even though I've been to her one lecture, I would go to another lecture with her, and I think you'd find it and she speaks well. She's entertaining, and it's a good read as well. It's not too dry. And the last thing I'd like to say is this Respectful Workplace document hasn't been my issue, and I haven't paid attention to it at all, but I agree with Mark that volunteers should be excluded from it.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Chris Moore, William Head Road. I was going to speak twice, but I'm not going to, given the time. Actually, just to mention, I did intend to speak to another item tonight that I find distressing and unjustified, and it was some comments that emerged a week ago in one of the committee meetings. But this is not the place or the time for this. But on a more timely note, I would like to speak to an item that has recently been raised by Bev Bacon with respect to acquiring much needed information on the state of our aquifers, specifically 606. And I'm personally overdue in thanking Bev for her considerate research and suggestions that she's put to you on this topic. That said, I want to emphasize that I'm appearing here tonight wearing a single hat, and that's that of a Metchosin resident. What I'm about to relate to you comes from Kathleen Zimmerman, who I know that you are all quite familiar with. I will also pass to you some of her pertinent findings as they likely relate to Metchosin and our emerging aquifer issues. Anyway, continuing on, the following account is based on Kathleen's very recent experience with well investigation surveys, very recently conducted in Central Saanich. It kind of goes like this. They conducted the survey in the hopes of, garnishing information from their well users. The end result is beyond suspected: sabotage. Fourfold increase in respondents, fourfold, then are known to be on wells, essentially rendering the data meaningless. It's not known if those survey instruments were numbered or required some kind of authentication, but frankly it hardly matters. The bottom line, it is considered by all a complete waste of money and time. So I mention this because I recall Bev had previously put that out there as a thought to include some survey or something along with maybe a tax notice or whatever. But if we can take a lesson from Central Saanich, they highly recommend hosting an in-person workshop to local well users as a much more reliable way of gathering that information. And this may already be part of your plan, I do not know. I mention this only because it was, as I said, mentioned by others, that it might be a good idea, but in light of what they have recently experienced, it hardly looks like it would be. Now, here's the mother lode. I'm going to pass out, if I may, some copies of a personal correspondence I recently had with Kathleen. I was seeking some other different info, but I'm allowed to share it with you with her blessing. And this is kind of everything you ever wanted to know about aquifers, wells. It includes a link to all the relevant data currently available, extraction methods for retrieving that information, and even analytical tools for its analysis. I mean, this is classic Kathleen. Anyway, if I may, I will pass these out, and feel free to read it and think what you might do with it, possibly. Anyway, I hope that this will serve your purposes and reduce council and staff's time in getting the information that we obviously so badly need. So, if I may, Steve, can I pass you 5? Do that time. Do you have enough? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Anybody else wish to speak at public participation?
Eric White, 1490 Chosen Road. I'd like to speak in support of Mark Atherton and the Code of Conduct. The other night I had to read through it, wondering why it had taken so long to get through council. And I realized there were some things the things that bothered me where it seemed administratively burdening, right? It also, as Mark pointed out, it seems aggressive. It seems bullying in the nature that everyone is an offender and everyone needs training. There was a part about everyone requiring annual training to not be a bully. I believe this is something we all went through in elementary school. This is basic. So annually seems redundant, and to be forced into it or lose your position seemed like something I even said to myself, like, do I want to submit myself to losing a weekend every year, to being told, don't call people names, don't be a jerk, So I felt it, I saw it, and I agree. It's one of those documents that comes forward as something that, oh yeah, we should all have a policy, but we all have that policy. We all understand what it is to be civilized, and if we have issues with each other, we talk them out, we sort them out as, adults. So a policy that pushes people into doing things, and self-reporting, I did read that part. It seemed that was the part that caught me off guard of, maybe that's why I hadn't gotten through council already, is people didn't want to have to self-report themselves. But the code of conduct in itself has some serious issues, and I really hope you guys will reconsider it.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to put on my high-vis vest here, so I'm going to get your attention a little bit. Because I'm going to be speaking again about Centre Mountain, in this before. Now, just before I do that, Alison Leduc, Kim Hill, 1070 Brookview Drive, downstream from Centre Mountain, and also director of the Bilston Watershed Habitat Protection Association. Alison, of course, she's laid up right now. She asked me to bring this by. Her text reads, believe that we will need an MOU, I guess it's a understanding, between Langford and Metchosin to cover things like liability, maintenance, etc., related to the detention pond and the quality of stormwater discharged into the from the Centre Mountain residential development into the bufferland and Metchosin Creek. I think that Metchosin should request that the MOU should, it's highlighted, specify a schedule of frequent, comprehensive water quality testing in all seasons, especially first flush events during which stormwater is especially toxic, and that the results be made public available in real time so that the community can be informed. It's kept informed. Near the top of page 2 of the Langford letter to Metchosin in your agenda, there's a reference to Langford Public Works staff noting visual quality issues when they're visiting the detention pond and other maintenance. Near the bottom of the second page, it says, testing may, quotation marks, be carried out should concerns arise related to water quality degradation. This is not sufficient. Many of the harmful contaminants in stormwater are not evident in visual inspection. Regular comprehensive water quality testing is required to determine whether there are water quality concerns due to common stormwater contaminants such as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, heavy metals, road salts, the de-icers, microplastics, pesticides, excess nutrients, and 6-ppdq, that's components being detected from tires. If comprehensive water quality testing is not carried out on an agreed schedule, how will we know about or if there are concerns? Now, further to that, I just a comment. Really appreciate our engineer being here, but and our new CEO. But a comment that came out was that Langford they'll reap the problems of things that happen at the centre. That's just inherently untrue. Metchosen's going to reap those problems. The drainage is all coming down to us. I'm going to cut back to the chase. I did this last winter. If Metchosen does not insist, demand otherwise, we are going to be we're going to be saddled with Langford's rules and regulations for both quality and quantity. And those are going to be employed in our community. In case you haven't noticed, let me remind you, Langford is wildly out of step with Metchosen when it comes to the environment, our attitude to environmental protection. And they're also out of step with virtually every other jurisdiction in North America. For instance, as far as flows go, we are being going to be, looks like we're going to be saddled with the design flow of protecting us from 1 in 10 events. That means every event over 1 in 10 storm, we're going to be wearing that. Even Tennessee has got 1 in 25. Alabama does. Washington State has 1 in 100. So does Alberta. So does Regina, Winnipeg, Toronto. And Metchosen does too. We should be following our own stormwater bylaw. We shouldn't be working step in glove with theirs. It's not up to standard. And
1 in 200 years.
Why? Pardon me?
1 in 200 years.
Well, that's you know, well, ditto for quality. You know, Washington State has a document legislated. This is not guidelines, not like BC's. You've got guidelines where all municipalities get to do whatever they want to. But Washington State, they've got exceeding 100 pages that go over water quality and the regulations, the monitoring, the ongoing, a comprehensive, the realization that unless you do this, you're going to lose it. And I love to trust people, you know, it's great, but trust has to be earned. And I'm hoping I can trust you guys. And a couple of elephants in the room now too. Couldn't help but point out that industrial land is going to go into those ponds. Where else is it going to go? The water comes downstream and it's going to hit those ponds. Nothing's being said about those ponds being designed for that, quality or quantity. And that, you know that station that they put in April 2021? They put that in up there, that monitoring station, and then they started clearing the trees. Well, what kind of data are you going to get from that? It's absolutely useless. And to allow them to go cutting the trees down because they put in a little pathetic monitoring station, it's shameful. Anyways, just a final thing here. Talking about one pond to manage all the runoff from there. Well, what kind of pond is that? It's not being defined as retention, detention, natural wetland construction. Totally not defined. It's in Metchosen's area. We should be defining the thing. Why are we letting somebody else come in and then we have to approve it? We should be defining that here and now. What should have been done long ago. But tell them, be instructive. Tell them what we require, not what the bare minimum we're going to approve. Designing the function should be absolutely first. It's the only silver lining I can see about this is that would not only control the flows from there, maybe we can make up for the fact that we've got terribly desperate situation about recharging the summer flows with the current trends. It's our only chance is we get in there and over-design that thing and do it so that it's not the pathetic least amount that can be presented and get away with it. We need to be laying down the law here. Monitoring, absolutely essential, should be for flows as well as the quality. They should be built into this right off the get-go. Lip service is good enough, and I find it a little bit discouraging because we're getting left in the dust here. Well, or like in the swamp, flood flows. Please take a stand. Stand up. We're chosen. They're going to do that for us in Langford.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Brent Donaldson, Challister Court. I'll be brief. Mark's a friend of mine, and so is Neil. Certainly, maybe the proposed workplace document might have been overzealous, but certainly we are in a different time. It used to be if somebody got mad at you on the road, you might have shook your fist. Now they're going to chase you down and shoot you. Social media has thrown a different light into how people behave. Anybody on an advisory council is an advisory committee is an extension of council. Simple. When you go out in the community, you're representing you guys. So certainly I think there should be some form of refresher, whether you're signing a document or not, but certainly I think, maybe people need to be refreshed. Again, I got all kind of respect for Mark, and I'm sorry to see him leave. I won't dwell too much on because Kim really covered it. When it comes to engineering, I've lived in the Valley for 48 years, better part of my life in Langford, another 35 in Metchosin. We rely on engineering. Just drive down Pete Road in Goldstream and you'll see a sky-rise building. It's empty. Engineer signed off. I don't have confidence. Certainly I don't believe there was any bond put up. It should have been millions of dollars. If there's a failure on Center Mountain, we're going to wear it, as Kim said. I just think we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. The industrial park, I understand where Councillor Perry is coming from. Certainly our neighbors, the First Nations, they want to proceed. But certainly all that water on that 300 odd acres is going to end up in our backyard. And all we are is a drainage dish for Langford. There's lots of land still available to be developed in Langford. All you have to do is drive down Latory Road. Any of the development that's taking place in the valley on the other side of the border is piecemeal. An engineer is going to sign off over there. We've got a little development over here. I don't know how much more that Bilston Creek, either from erosion, damage to our infrastructure, I think we're going to pay for it. Honestly, and all due respect to our engineer and our CAO and our interim CAO, we got sold a bill of goods. Lastly, on the enhanced riparian area, I've reviewed the documents. Certainly, I was at the last MEAS meeting when Councillor Gray brought it forward. There was a little dialogue, which I was a little concerned about. I thought that there would be a little bit more to that. It's before you tonight. Certainly seeing what's going on the other side of the border, I think it's punitive to our Metchosin folks. Certainly you folks have been in power or at the table for 15 months now. Have you met with our colleagues or your colleagues in Langford and had a discussion about what's happening in the valley? Center Mountain's huge. And we're not suggesting that you stop development, but have a discussion with them. We've got acreages here, and they're talking small lot subdivisions that are 5,000 square feet. And we're talking about penalizing people that have 2 or 3 or 5 acres. I think it's sad. Have faith in your people that live here, and at the very least, educate the folks that are here. It's great to bring up bylaws. We rubber stamp them. They sit in a file somewhere. Educate people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening? No. Okay. So with that, we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. So if you can turn to page 5 of your agenda package. We've got the special council meeting of January 5th at 4 p.m.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the council meeting of January 8th on page 7 of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ebb, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? Go ahead.
There was just the one point there raised by Beth Bacon about concerns about the notification requirements, 60 meters. On these, in this case, variance permits. Is there anything to be done about that? Do we need staff advice on that? Just let it go?
What page you on?
Page 7 of 119. It's just the bottom of Beth Bacon's comment. It's the idea that we go 60 meters, then in a rural area, 60 meters may not even hit the next neighbor. When staff go out for a request for information, is it something worth looking at? Councillor Shukin, maybe.
I'm trying to think. I believe that at this meeting, we talked about the potential of looking at our. Hold on a sec here. Part of the resolution that was passed is whether council should be reviewing section 23 of the land use bylaw for secondary suites. We might cover notification in that as well, and maybe I would ask Ms. Hanson to make a note of that so we can bring it forward as a consideration.
Sounds good, thanks.
With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. On page 13, we have the special council meeting of January 11th.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the special council meeting of January 15th.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, Shukin, seconded by Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So receipt of the minutes. We have Councillor Shukin, the Community Planning Committee meeting of January 15th.
I would just move adoption. Thank you.
This is
or
receipt.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then Councillor Gray, we have received the minutes from January 15th for the Environment and Natural Areas Committee.
Yeah, I'll move receipt. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have Councillor Epp, receipt of the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting of January 15th.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you for that. Well, just moving on to Mayor's report. I had a written report the last council meeting. This is just a verbal update. Everybody in the community is invited on January 31st. It's Wednesday, I believe. From 5 to 7 p.m. Council will be hosting a small reception for the community to meet our new CAO, Bob Payette, and his family. We hope you can attend. So that's January 31st, and it's on the website. Questions were asked last meeting regarding capacity funding that we were supposed to receive from the province. So the District of Metchosin has received $172,000 from the province, and this money is intended to support activities or projects for local governments that they must undertake to meet the new legislative requirements. Examples that the money can be used for is updates to the existing zoning bylaw, parking bylaws, official community plan, official development plans, DCCs, that kind of thing. So the funding can also be used to hire staff or consultants to support these ideas and activities. So we've already heard at the budget discussions that we will need increase in planners' time, so some of this money can be put towards that. Go ahead.
Mayor Little, a quick question. Will this money be factored into the next budget meeting?
I don't think so, but we all know about it, $172,854 that we have for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, and that concludes my mayor's update. Moving along to page 33, Councillor Shukin. This is the business arising from the council meeting, or sorry, from the Community Planning Committee recommendations of January 15th.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. I would like to, I'm sorry. I would like to move approval of the following. And this would be the groundwater resolution for the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities. And I apologize in advance. I am going to read out the resolution just so everyone can hear. So that council endorse the following resolution for AVICC. Whereas over 1 million British Columbians rely on groundwater for daily use, and that groundwater presents significant challenges in terms of monitoring, defining, classifying, or characterizing, and demonstrating water viability, including water use and budget allocations. And whereas the impacts of climate change, population growth, and industrial activity are intensifying, and that all three factors can negatively impact groundwater sustainability and sources. Therefore, be it resolved that the provincial government prioritize the following. So to renew the work of identifying aquifers at risk in terms of productivity, vulnerability to contamination, climate change, population growth, and other criteria. Second, continue to build the province's groundwater monitoring capacity, including installation of additional observation wells for high-risk aquifers. 3, develop a regular reporting process on the health and viability of high-risk aquifers, and develop a funding program for local governments to support local monitoring of groundwater resources. Thank you very much. So I would move, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm lost. What move?
Yep,
I would make a motion to adopt.
Endorse. Yep, this recommendation
Thank
to
you.
council.
I would move that council endorse this resolution. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Anybody wish to speak? Go ahead.
Just a couple of points. It's titled groundwater protection, and I wonder if it might be clear to say groundwater monitoring. But that's really something to think about going to AVICC, just how to tackle that. The other thing, today we've got the background document, I don't remember it from before, but I noticed a really important point there. I think you're the author, maybe, Councillor Shukin. On the second page, the 2009 Provincial Observation Well Network Review Report recommended that 4 observation wells be installed within, I think, our aquifer, 606.
Yeah, did I miss that?
No, I think that's right. And so I'm just wondering about the request. The last meeting I asked, is 606 a high-risk aquifer? And I think we're like, no, it's fragile, it has some other title to it. So I was wondering about adding, establish observation wells as recommended in 2009 Provincial Observation Well Network Report. Because you're almost there, except there's no, we're not saying, hey, what about the aquifer like the one here? Yeah. If it's just high-risk aquifers, well, then we don't count, possibly. So anyway, I know this is for the whole province, it's not just for Metchosin, but would it be worthwhile adding that, or is that too much? I'm okay with either way. I just wanted to raise it because I read it here and thought, oh my gosh, look at that. We should have 4 more wells.
Totally. And I think it would, the goal of the resolution itself is to be broader than just Metchosin, although we have one of the aquifers that is suffering a shortage of observation wells, especially given the population growth of late and the size of the aquifer. So, but I feel like it is addressed in the backgrounder, and I think the motion is, to my mind, it's good as it is, broad, is it?
Well, through the chair, I'll go with it. I just wanted to raise, so we know the resolution is not asking for observation wells in Metchosin, it doesn't look like. But we do want one. We do need more.
Yeah, and I thought we did pass some direction, that we were going to write a letter related to Aquifer 606. So I'm not sure that happened, but we can renew it.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the other question was, and I'd mentioned it the other day about farming. Should farming be mentioned as well? It's such an important activity. and it does require groundwater often. So it's one of the competitive forces. It may not be needed in the resolution, but perhaps it would be mentioned in the introduction or in the background or when you go forward, and that would be satisfy me.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much. As Councillor Gray is mentioning, the backgrounder is new. And yes, I am the author of it. And it was very tough to put together, I have to say. But I do want to thank Alison Leduc for her input, and also Nicole Shukin as well for proofing it several times to make sure it was correct. Or not correct, but readable. I will just go back to Chris Moore provided us with some links to Aquifer 606, and two of the key tables that you'll find in these links are actually in the background as well, and they are showing declines in the productivity in terms of what the data is being read. So one of the things I would like to do, I did meet a number of people at UBCM who were concerned about water. I'd actually like to circulate the backgrounder to them and update it accordingly, but if that's okay, yeah. And I'm good to add farming as well. I think that's a good point. So,
Anybody else? Go ahead.
We might even ask for co-sponsors.
Yeah, great.
Anybody else wish to speak to this resolution? It's on the table, moved and seconded. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. One, Councillor Shukin to B.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. I would move that Council agree to a study on carbon offsetting feasibility with the Coastal Douglas for Conservation Partnership. We talked about this at length at the last committee meeting.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any questions? Can you remind us the cost to the district?
It is being done at no cost to us.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? No, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we've got business arising from the Environment and Natural Areas Committee recommendations of January 15th. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. The first motion I would like to make is in regard to treatment of invasive holly. And the motion is that Council directs staff to work with the Metchosin Invasive Species Cooperative on the removal of holly from Metchosin Road, right-of-ways, and boulevards.
Second.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
The second motion I would like Council to entertain is that the Mayor write a letter to neighboring municipalities on behalf of Council to encourage them not to plant holly and other invasives such as ivy and daphne.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Continue.
When we met as the Environment Committee, another topic was raised, which was that I would explore with the Capital Regional Invasive Species Partnership the idea of limiting sale of invasives in nurseries and other locations. It turns out that I've been in touch with the CRD leader there who suggested that a letter would be useful to the province. So I'm going to move that Council, consistent with our discussion at Environment Committee, that the Mayor write the province to advocate invasive species legislation be updated to ban the sale of the sale and distribution of invasives.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Gray,
I'd second for discussion.
seconded by Councillor Shukin.
So it turns out the sale is regulated by the province, so they're the people to go to. There's some feeling that, oh, well, they won't listen, but the point was made, and one of the residents asked that we pursue that, and I think that would be a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, Councillor Shukin.
Oh, I think it's fine. It's actually would have been a great resolution for AVICC to bring it up there, but it's okay. We're a little late now.
So in the letter, we would identify in particular Daphne, holly, others. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
I think invasives in general, but yes.
Yeah, I like the word just invasive in general, not specifying. This is mostly because we have this stuff all over our property. It's not ivy or daphne, but it came out of a hanging basket. and it has grown and spread to the neighbors like it's impossible in every little bit of dirt, the roots it grows. So I think being specific is a kind of a mistake, because I think it's just invasives, period.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Well, then I believe that there's a invasive species BC. We'll keep a list, and so that seems equal to reference without being specific. So, yeah.
Okay. And so this is to encourage the province to limit sale of invasive species.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody's clear on that? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bullfrogs.
Bullfrogs is the next one. So the motion there is that council support Stan Orchard's recommendation that Metchosin continue bullfrog control work in 2024. And there's, I guess we have the attachment with their agenda at the Environment Committee.
So this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Riparian.
The next motion is that council requests a staff report on the measures available to the district under the Provincial Riparian Areas Protection Act to strengthen riparian protection in Metchosin.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Discussion?
Thank you. So at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about the planner time, on that issue, and so I think we can resolve that our new CEO will manage that and sort of a medium-term project. So I think that'll be okay. The other question that I don't know if was bothering anybody was, once implemented, is that going to take more staff time? And I think the answer is no. It's really just a change in the rules. So it may, in fact, reduce some staff time. Depends on what gets implemented. We heard today and the other day from a resident, Brent Donaldson, about education being key to success, and I think that he's correct. And I would suggest that when we get some measures back, that'll be one of the issues we need to deal with. I want to thank Alison Leduc from the Bilston Watershed Habitat Protection Association for supporting correspondence, and Bev Bacon as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I just have a question to Councillor Gray. You're just looking for a report from the staff on what the Riparian Areas Protection Act is, or what the maximum and minimum protection areas?
No, what I'm looking for is a report that would explain to us what we can do under the Riparian Areas Protection Act. So there's a variety of actions that the province is encouraging local government to do, and the question is which ones fit here in Metchosin with our OCP and with our strategic plan, with our climate plan, what would work best here in Metchosin. So I don't know yet what those things might be. I've given a couple of examples, but we can either meet or exceed the current manner in which things are done, and that's what the province has in the Riparian Areas Protection Act. So we learn a little bit more. It's about learning what are the possibilities here.
So we would learn what we have might be not excessive, might actually suit us.
Correct.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed, right? Okay. Great. On page 41, Councillor F, we have some information regarding dark skies and fireworks.
Right. As we know, Metchosin already has a dark sky policy, a little plaque up there, but it just covers municipal property. So this idea is to recommend that it be included, including the whole community in it and the options. So I will move that council authorize the Healthy Community Advisory Select Committee to draft a formal proposal for the district to become a dark sky community.
This is moved by Councillor F, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead.
Thanks. The next one is regarding the fireworks. So, and fire regulation and prevention bylaw number 269, 1996. I move council direct staff bring forward an amendment to the fire regulation and prevention bylaw number 269, 1996 to ban the use of fireworks in Metchosin. And the action is that staff is to provide advice when the Fire Regulation and Prevention Bylaw number 269/1996 comes to council for review to address the question of enforcement, information to be provided on fines and enforcement.
Second that.
Moved by Councillor F, seconded by Councillor Schuken. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. We have reports for action, starting on page 43. We have a report from the West Shore Parks and Recreation, from Grant Brown, the administrator. Councillor Donaldson is our liaison. She's our appointed liaison for the year for the West Shore Parks and Recreation. What they're asking is for one member, typically the mayor, to attend the AGM, the annual general meeting that's to be held on Thursday, July 13th. So looking for a motion to that effect, as we did last year. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I'd move that we appoint the mayor to attend the annual general meeting of the West Shore Parks and Recreation in 2024.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Schuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then we have a report to council from Ms. Hanson, the Deputy Corporate Officer, to Mr. Payette, the Chief Administrative Officer, regarding mutual aid agreement renewal for the City of Colwood. So this is for a 5-year term. We've had, since 2017, the District of Metchosin and the City of Colwood Fire Departments have had mutual aid agreements for the provisions of fire suppression and fire rescue. The current agreement expires in February, and so we're looking for a renewal. So the options for council to consider are on page 46. I would recommend number 1. What does council wish? Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I move that council approve the mutual aid agreement for fire rescue services between the District of Metchosin and the City of Colwood, and authorize the mayor and the chief administrative officer to execute the agreement on behalf of Metchosin.
This is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Just a question. In the briefing document, it says that there'll be automatic renewal, so for a second 5-year term, but I didn't see that in the contract. And I wondered, is that just an agreement we have separate from the contract, or how is that managed?
I don't know the answer to that question. Fire Chief, do you know?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
In the report it says automatic, but in the agreement it says after review after 5 years.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson. Thank you.
I was just wondering, in this agreement, are there any costs?
No.
It's just mutual.
It's a mutual aid, yeah. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have, next on the list is the District of Metchosin policy, Metchosin respectful workplace policy. Okay, so I'm going to start this out. In 2012, the province mandated that all municipalities have a respectful workplace policy. What this council has done is try to play catch up to that regulation that was in 2012. This policy was vetted by our legal counsel. I think it's clear from the discussion tonight that we need to do some thinking about this, as well as some changes to the document. That's what I would recommend, because we don't want to be seen as bullying people into signing things they don't want to sign. We don't want to be accused of causing QP members to do things they're not supposed to do. So I'd like a rethink on this. What does the council want? Go ahead.
Yeah, when I went through this and have heard some feedback, as well as tonight, but outside of this meeting, on this policy, I agree we need to revisit it for sure. to be more inclusive, maybe more brief, but I'd also suggest that there be an educational component to it. The one, from my own experience, being in the workforce, where I worked in a field where there was actually a lot of harassment, and some of that still to this day exists, but every school asks their volunteers to do there's an organization in Canada called the Respect Group, goes across the nation, and it started out with bullying in hockey arenas, coaches and that sort of thing. And then we heard what's happened with Rena Ver, a local girl. And there's been lots and lots of stories across the nation. Schools do require and do the sports teams, the local sports teams, for parents that are volunteers, for children actually to sign respect, and there's usually activity leaders, there's respect amongst youth, different kinds of groups. Scouts Canada is very, very careful with this sort of thing. All of their volunteers are screened, and this is one of the things that they're required to do. That particular program is for 5 years, because parents will then go and volunteer for other things, not just for school, not just for sports teams. So there's an ask there. The reason being is because, yeah, the good old ways of doing things and the jostling and that are not always, not because people are oversensitive, but because things have changed. And there are bullies. People grow up and become bullies or whatever. There's different harassment. This might be strong language. I do think that we should revisit it, but I do believe that there's a need for it. Our advisory groups are an arm's reach of our governance model. None of them sign an oath like we do. We could, in some ways, be considered volunteers. We get a stipend just like the volunteer firefighters do. The fire department itself has a lot of volunteers that aren't signing this. So I don't know how far-reaching we want to do this, but certainly I think that it's worthwhile to revisit it. Absolutely. It is the day we live in. There are things that take place, and we do have very, very good people on every one of our advisory groups. I respect them, and I respect the feedback that they've given us this evening as well.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Gray.
Sure. I appreciate what was said tonight. We've been following along with this for a little ways yet. I don't actually agree with some of the perspectives offered that it's bullying to ask people to not bully. However, the perception is important as well. I think there are a number of changes that could be made, and so rather than just changes should be made, I'd like to propose a few things in terms of staff relook at this. But I'm not interested in not having such a policy. I'll just be clear about that. I think it's a necessary item. As Councillor Donaldson's mentioned a moment ago, this extends not to volunteers in our community, but to with respect to the advisory select committees, which are in fact an arm of council. So it's just part of the deal. And so I think it would be good to reword the document wherever it's not clear that volunteers are included. I think there are some corrections that need to be made in terms of plain English reading, and one of the residents, Mr. West, talked about there's some typos in here as well. I think that we do need to check with CUPE. I wasn't aware of that issue, and I don't know if this is accepted by CUPE as a document that is appropriate or not. So I'd like to just confirm that information we heard. And I think it does need to extend to the volunteer fire department or the volunteers of the fire department. If they've got something already in place, maybe our CEO could take a look at that and see why they're different and should there be any difference at all. So a recommendation on that would be helpful. Then when you turn to section 7.0, annual review and training. The training here, we heard from a different resident about spending half a day or a day on the weekend. I think it's an online course that people do, and I think it's about 15 minutes of time. It's not a big onerous task, and I think that's fine, but maybe it should mention the online training in the source so that it's embedded in the document. People know, no, it's just complete this. I'm what we did last year is we invited people who didn't want to do the online training or needed more information or wanted to learn more to come to an interactive in-person circumstance. But the way that I read it, it's actually up to the person to decide whether they attend or whether they do the online course. And then we take their statement that they did it. We're not chasing people down about it. It's all self-reporting as to their participation. So adding that in here, I think, would be helpful. And then I have a question just for discussion. Should this be an annual training? Certainly when you join, makes sense. And whether it should be annual or every 2 years, I'm not sure. I just put that out there. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas, or Speaker, sorry.
It's okay. Thank you, Mary-Lou. I am also, I confess to, being somewhat torn about this just because of my committee affiliation. There's been considerable discussion and quite a bit of frustration in terms of the policy and what may appear to some as being coercive. I want to do nothing like that. And especially when this is coming from longer term volunteers. But I have to say, there was discussion as to why this might apply to volunteers, but I very much believe there should be something that applies to committee members. And it's been said very well, they're an extension of the governance arm of council. So yeah, very much believe that something like this should apply to them. They're council appointees talking about district assets in under the auspices of like a council policy and a bylaw. So, but there are some issues that I think with this particular policy that we do have to address. We've test driven it for a year, and there are some changes. So my own sense is that volunteer. So one thing I'd like to see is volunteer defined quite clearly. And perhaps it doesn't mean all the volunteers, but it should encompass those who are appointed by council. So a definition. My own view is that the form should not be, we should not have to sign it every year, but for the term of a volunteer of a volunteer's term, once per term. And in terms of training, my own sense is that we should have a training process for onboarding new volunteers, but I don't think you have to go through that process every year. It might be enough to put the policy on an agenda of a regular meeting and go through it at that point. And it's a reminder, it has people reading it ideally, and go with that. So, and one of the other things, of course, is that ensuring that we are clear where this does apply to volunteers, and particularly the signature bar at the end. I think that needs to be made consistent and clear. So, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Herle.
Yeah, I'm fine with with tweaking it here and there, and some of the suggestions we've already heard. But I think it's a good policy, and I think it's, in this day and age, I think it's a really important policy. It's unfortunate that we need it, but I think we do. I think we hear news report after news report about things that are in this policy, people have suppressed for years that are now coming to light, and that's basically across the board to all walks of life and ages. And I think there are a lot of vulnerable people out there that may be on our committees, and I think that having a policy like this gives them a sense of comfort that if they do run into things that bother them, that they have actual steps, process that they can use to deal with it. So, excuse me, like I say, I think tweaking it is fine about the volunteers and the community and so on, but I think that we really need to hold this policy up.
Well, we do need some policy. It was more than a decade ago we were supposed to have some kind of a policy, so we need a policy in place. I like the steps that are listed here for procedures for investigating incidents, procedures for when there is a complaint, what do you do? And the first is try and work it out informally. And I think most will be able to be resolved informally. And I do like the idea of removing some of the sort of aggressive language in here. But actually, if I can turn a question to our former interim CAO, Ms. Tarnowski, this, as I understand, this came from our legal team. This was a policy that they drafted and forwarded to us. Doesn't mean we can't amend it, but that's what I recall as well. Thank you. So what I think we should do is, since some of us didn't know that we were going to be talking about making extensive changes, keep the changes that you've made right now. We'll put it on a future, either one of the committee members or this meeting, so that we can get this right. I do believe that this should extend to committee members as well, since they are an extension of council. I don't think this needs to be done annually. Once per term would be sufficient. And we should definitely check whether QP members can sign this. Okay, Brian?
If I could just suggest, in process-wise, it might be advantageous to provide our comments to staff, and then they could bring us a document. My worry is that if we try to edit it in a meeting, that's just a big job and not really big on doing that myself.
Okay.
So I don't know if that works. Get our comments in and then see any changes that might come back, or how some other way other than editing it in a meeting.
Well, I think that it would work. However, I am wondering if maybe our deputy corporate officer has been taking notes on this and may already have that information.
Yeah, she has been, but it would be helpful in case comments need to go in there, if you could forward them to her. And then we could bring this back, because we definitely don't want to insult our volunteers, but we want to uphold provincial legislation as well. Okay? Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on. We've got reports for information starting on page 71. This is a report from the Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Tarnowski, regarding disposal of fire department engine number 9. Ms. Tarnowski, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Council. So just what I'd like to say in regards to this report is to commend the fire chief on getting a much better than expected value for a 35-year-old fire truck. So just really as a report for information for council, so that if you're out there looking for engine 9, it's no longer in the thing. So again, kudos to the fire chief for getting being able to sell it for a salvage value that was higher than what we expected, given the fact that the fire truck had zero net book value, which means that to us it's worth nothing on the books. So,
okay. And so that it was sold for $6,000. Fire Chief, did you want to address anything in this? No, you're fine.
I'll move receipt.
Thank you for that, for disposing of it and arranging for them to actually pay for it. So moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor?
Question?
Yes, right.
A couple of questions.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, I didn't realize there was mechanical issues, as I've never heard any reports on that. What I would like to know is where does the money go? I've got actually several questions, so I'm just going to answer them.
Okay.
And how did it that a farmer actually acquired this? So how does it actually, how did we actually come to finding somebody? Was it advertised? Did it go to public bid? That sort of thing. So we start out with, a certain sum of money, and then we find out that a local farmer has it, and we may see it, and they may, if it's got mechanical stuff, hopefully they've got extra money to fix it. But yeah, let's see those questions answered.
Yeah, I think it was a casual conversation between farmer and the fire chief. The farmer expressed interest and in some kind of a vehicle repurposed. Where would the finances go? They would go into the operating budget?
No, into the fire equipment reserve.
Into the fire equipment reserve.
Okay. So the fact that actually it's over the 5,000 begs the question, probably should have gone to public bid. Maybe there are other people that would have been interested and we might have gotten more money.
Possibly, yeah.
The last time this happened, it was quite a different story.
Mr. Offse.
The fact that there was just a guesstimate of salvage value, but in terms of the book value, it's worth nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like on the books, it's worth nothing. So there would have been, I have to say, I really commend the fire chief for being able to obtain $6,000 because given the age and issue, we were trying to figure out, well, what do we do with this piece of equipment? Surely we couldn't donate to anybody in good conscience, given all the issues. And like I said, to me, she did a really wonderful job and be able to recoup $6,000 for the engine.
Okay. So its assessed value was $0. And so it didn't need to go to council, but since she was able to receive $6,000 for it, this is why we've got this report. Anybody else wish to speak to us? I'll receive this for information. Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor, opposed, carried. We've got the District of Metchosin Public Communication Reports on page 73. You see that we have in the current month 71 to date. Given the snow that we've just experienced, it's not surprising that we would get a number of communication reports regarding roads. Go ahead, Councillor Schuken.
Move to proceed.
Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we've got the Metchosin Building Inspection Department report for you year to date. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Schuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the District of Metchosin Bylaw Enforcement Summary. This is the, you can see bylaw by far the land use issues after 80 hours. It's on page 77 there. So receive. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Schuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We've got the South Vancouver Island Farmers Institute that Robin Tunnicliffe spoke to. Councillor Donaldson, do you have any recommendations regarding this?
Well, I am actually a member of this, a new member of this this institute. They are a very energetic group. Everything that Robin says is just it's amazing the things that they want to do with very, very few resources. They have a whole week's worth of workshops that they've got planned. I have no idea who's helping them out doing it. There are different farms putting on different subjects all related to farming. I'll do my best to put as much stuff out on social media to promote it. There is an all-day event. I'm hoping to go there and maybe I will present something at the plenary. I have to talk to Robin a bit more about that. They're asking for support by way of our participation in a plenary, which is easy enough to do, and a few other things that kind of go with that to support it. They're also looking for some funds, and they haven't specified a large amount of money. Actually, I'm just trying to read if they specified any.
No,
they haven't.
No.
And I'm not sure what we have in the way of finances for this, so I would like to ask our CFO, Ms. Tarnowski, if there's any way we can, and how much. I'm not sure. The PAC, who we are a member of, which is the event Peninsula Agricultural Association. They have, they've sponsored by paying for the rental of Saanich Fairgrounds buildings and stuff like that. That's quite a generous sponsorship, so I'm happy that our membership in that's helpful. However, because we, as Robin said, we do have up and coming farmers, we want to encourage that more. We're almost finished our agricultural plan. Had this been the other way around and had our agricultural plan done by now, or maybe the conference would be later, we could have applied for grant funds or that sort of thing through that. However, they're asking council and the district for some funds, and I would really like to support this group. They're only 100 strong at the moment, and seeking so much more from our community.
We do have funds in our grant and aid, so if they could apply for a grant and aid, that'll be unfortunately another couple months.
Yes, and unfortunately that money doesn't get dealt out till June. This conference is next month.
Okay. Councillor Beck.
It sounds like a really neat group, and I certainly agree with an in-kind of providing them with a map. But as far as funds go, the last council meeting we just denied giving any funds to the Wounded Warriors run for the reason just that you brought up that that next year or this coming spring they could apply for a grant and aid. And I think it's the same with this group, that if we make that decision with one, we have to be consistent. So could help them possibly with in-kind and with having a representative at their event, but I don't agree with giving them any money this year.
Okay. Councillor Shukin.
Thanks, Mayor Little. I'm kind of going with Councillor Epp on this one, and I feel it's probably good for us to be consistent in terms of providing funding for individual groups or events. And the grant and aid program is a great way of showcasing what you do and in an orderly process in terms of disbursement of funds from the district. So as much as I'd like to help them right away, this group, I think we should wait for the grant and aid.
Okay, so we could provide a liaison or a couple people for their plenary session, as well as a map of the agricultural zoning area in kind is what they're asking, and then ask them to apply for the grant and aid.
Yeah, I will also take with me the map that the Ag Committee designed last year.
Yeah.
As that is representative of the farms that are happening here now and chosen.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I don't think we need any resolutions for that. Do you want a resolution for that? No?
Just going to move receipt.
Yeah, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we've got correspondence information. We have a letter from Caitlin Balzer, the engineer with Langford, regarding our motions. Councillor Shukin, would you like to move receipt of this, and do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I will just very quickly identify just one or two things. It's great news that Langford has provided us with this. It's a step toward, I think, an outcome that we want to see. And again, is in keeping with the covenant itself. Again, one of the things that gives me concern, though, is there's... Yeah, like the one thing, and just there's mention of one oil and grit separator. It's mentioned twice in the letter, so it's just a matter of keeping an eye on how things are unfolding. And I confess to raising some misgivings in November about how this was unfolding. I have kind of regained that confidence in terms of how Machosen is engaging, and particularly with Mr. Herle. So Mr. Herle being at the helm of our engagement here. So yeah, I will just simply move receipt unless there's further discussion.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Paulson. Did you want to speak to this?
Just wanted to ask through the chair to Councillor Shukin where we're at with having our own hydrologist, because we had budgeted for that. Did we ever reach out to maybe Mr. Patrick Lucy as
Yeah. Now, Mr. Herle made reference to this. We did go out as part of an RFP process, and there apparently was no response to that. So, and I believe Mr. Lucy was one of the people.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he was directly contacted.
Yeah. Now, again, as I distinctly recall Mr. Herle saying we maybe have to be a little bit more creative. Is that what you said, I think?
I said cast a wider net.
Cast a wider net. Thank you very much. Sorry to mischaracterize. But yeah, and I guess I have questions too about what budget will be available to us now that we're in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another question to dig into. But again, based on I would say based on the complexity of the problem or the challenge ahead, it would be good for us to find another level of expertise that can inform Mr. Herle. So how that is done, I can't say right at this moment myself. So thanks.
So we'll leave that to the CAO and Mr. Herle to cast a wider net.
Yeah.
I was interested in the comments made by the public about the need for ongoing post development comprehensive water quality testing, regular measures beyond the quantity, the volume measures that will be there. And I expect that our CEO's made note of that in terms of the conversations we'll be carrying on. But it just struck me the importance of that.
Okay. So moved and seconded, no other comments. Call question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have a letter from Dr. Chang regarding a Metchosin Natural History Club house. He's requesting some space at the old school, the refurbished old school. I love the concept. And I think it would be an advantage to the community for this. I just think the timing is not so great right now. So if we could move receipt for this, not forget about it. This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. Anybody want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll just mention we're going to hear from Dr. Chang tomorrow night at MEAS just to flesh out a little bit what he's interested in doing.
Okay.
But we're fully aware there may not be rooms available, there are other competition for rooms. It's just talking about the concept. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good one. I did, as I said I would at a previous meeting, put him on the biodiversity project who also think it's a good idea. I suggest he talk to the museum and MAC up. And there'll be lots more people than these Garden folks are missed. But it's just the idea of it's a cool notion. Let's kick it around some more and see what we might do. One of the comments I did make to him as well was that, in my experience, not having a group doing it doesn't really work very well. Probably as people get interested, and if it were to go ahead, and if there was room, and if all the things fell into place, I expect it would need to congeal around a group of people who would be interested in doing it.
Okay.
I'll report back if anything comes out of MEAS.
Okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have a letter regarding the community use for the renovated Metchosin school. This is from the pickler, Carol Voigt, regarding Metchosin Pickleball Club. I think we should receive this for information. Once the bylaws are passed, the picklers can reach out to the CAO to start negotiations regarding their contract. Go ahead.
I can just say that in the interim, Chief Dunlop has agreed to handle the bookings and has been in contact with Carol Voigt about it, and I think she's quite pleased at the result. They're going to be able to get on their court in February. And so, we're just we met with the CAO as well. So we're just sort of getting started with just to get things rolling there. And I think it's pretty positive so far. So.
Okay.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Epp. Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we've got a couple of bylaws to go through. We'd like to have first, second, third reading of the fees amendment bylaw 2024 number 695. This is to amend the Metchosin fees bylaw. You've got a schedule B here on page 95 that will be replaced in the bylaw. Does anybody have any questions regarding this? Go ahead.
Yes, so we've listed the community recreation emergency services and commercial as the four pillars of renting out the gym. And then on page 96, number 3, it says Metchosin Fire Department Emergency Operations Center. So in the discussion we had previously, it's been changed on the report here to be emergency services. We talked about, as it states here, for our fire department, it's zero rental, but for other emergency services, we don't have any fees here. So my question is, what about that?
You mean like for the EOC?
No, there are other there's other training that goes on in, well, what was Instinct. So there's other training that goes on over there, and so I'd like to know, they get charged differently, correct?
Yeah, I think that they would be called a commercial at that point.
Okay. I think that's what we need to clarify then. If those are the fees that are allocated to other emergency services, whether it be the Coast Guard or other fire departments.
Yeah. Does anybody want to speak to this, staff?
They will be classified as commercial users.
Okay. Would you like an asterisk there?
I think it needs to be documented correctly, yes.
Okay.
It's a significant difference in pricing, obviously, because our department's getting it for free, and then others would have a different fee structure.
Okay. Right.
We could add Metchosin a second time, Metchosin Fire Department and Metchosin Emergency Operations Center. Would that do it?
Well, I think it should say what it says on the first page. It's certainly emergency services, and then it needs to be, the actual category is emergency services, and then you can do an asterisk or whatever to apply to others that are in the same similar fields.
Well, I think this is nicely defined in number 3. It's for the Metchosin Fire Department and Metchosin Emergency Operations Center, our EOC. I think it can be solved by putting asterisks here saying other emergency services would be classified as commercial users.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, we can add that to that. Anything else?
And I had a question, and just because I'm curious, portable sound system tech support, what would that be? Is that just setting it up, or it comes a couple times?
Councillor, can you?
Yeah, it's a fairly, we have a brand new sound system, and it's not one that, you just can't have anybody using it. So we did talk to Joshua at Shea Music, and he's interested in providing tech support. He's the order and he knows all about it. So, and if he can't do it, he can find someone else. So the idea is that the sound system, would be different from a different category than having the tech to set it up. But also somebody has to be able to get it out, set it up, and then at the end of the event, put it away, take it down. So.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Adson.
Herle, just once council's ready to give readings, you'll just want to give first and second, and then amend it, and then do third.
Okay, so let's give first and second readings, then we'll amend it, and then we'll do the third reading. That's the proper way to do this. Okay? So that's just, we usually don't amend make any changes until we do first and second reading.
So I've moved that council give first reading to the fees amendment bylaw 2024 number 695.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And you second as well?
The council gives second reading to Fees Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 695.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'll move an amendment to the Schedule B to place an asterisk after Mitchelson Fire Department and Emergency Operations Center EOC to say other fire departments and emergency services.
Just other emergency services.
Other emergency services
Will be classified.
will be classified as commercial users.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think the chief has a comment we should maybe.
There's no fee structure for the kitchen. But that has classrooms listed on there as well.
Is there a fee for the kitchen?
No.
I don't see it listed here. Yeah, go ahead.
I agree, as I read in the last, in the Public Works Committee meeting last week, there was quite a conversation at the Health Communities Committee about using it as a community kitchen. And so I think we do need to put something in place for that. We will have to for other parts of the building, obviously, and the fields and the parking, but now the kitchen is set. I'm assuming all the renovations are done. We need to consider that too.
Okay.
Just
Councillor Epp, then Councillor. Yeah.
Just maybe we should vote on that, a little amendment, and then carry on to the next one.
Sure, we can vote on that. That was moved by Councillor Gray and Epp.
And
that was the asterisk?
The asterisk, other emergency services.
Sure. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we should have some kind of fee for the kitchen. And that should be for all of the community groups. Go ahead.
We realize that the fee, like this, the numbers listed on here are just basically a starting point, and we did agree that they're going to evolve with time. The time we did it, there was no kitchen, so I don't think that passing the bylaw doesn't affect changes to this fee schedule down the road. I think we can still add the kitchen or whatever else we need to add, without having to do it as far as the motion to pass the bylaw. Is that correct?
Okay. Was the intent, Councillor Epp, that the kitchen would provide extra fees for the district, or?
Well, it's possible, but it's going to need some thought on that, and just how it would work, and who would use it, and so on.
Probably needs to be outfitted with some utensils and bowls and everything else too, right? It's empty, right?
There's a mighty garage sale, has all sorts of stuff. So don't have to have everything branded, but it's very functional stuff that goes there.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Okay, so with that, we've got one concrete change. With that, is everybody okay with leaving this as is and passing it a third? Yeah? Okay, Councillor Epp, go ahead.
Just move third reading of the, I lost my page here, of the fees bylaw, whichever number it is.
695.
695.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the second bylaw that we have is the Municipal Ticket Information Authorization Amendment Bylaw number 697. This is on page 101. You've got some discussion options to consider. We would like to have first, second, and third reading for the municipal ticket information if possible. So if I could have first and second, and then we can have discussion, that'd be great. Go ahead.
So I'll move that council give first reading to the Municipal Ticket Authorization Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 697.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead.
So I'll move a second reading to Municipal Ticket Authorization Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 697.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead.
I had a question, which the fees, when I look at them, I think I'm fine with them. I was a little bit interested that things like dangerous dogs and aggressive dogs and failure to comply with an animal control officer, some of the fines seem a little low, but are these reflecting CRD rates? Are we tied to the CRD? And that's fine, I'm not suggesting change, I'm just curious where the numbers came from.
I don't know. Ms. Tarnowski.
Yes, they are tied to the CRD, so it's for consistency for them to enforce the fees.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Epp? No. No? No? Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll take the third reading.
Just want a point of clarity on page 115, from number 28 to the end on the next page. It repeats itself several times, but there's different section numbers. Is the section referring to, I don't know what it's referring to. Obviously, there's been some updates. It's all the same thing though. Unauthorized secondary sweep and then used contrary to bylaw, and it's all the same pricing stuff. So sections, they're just updated words?
Yeah, I think it was different updates, like this one was from 2004. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you're seeing violations of different sections. So while they have the same words or expression, the sections are different, so violating each section has a different charge. And I asked the Deputy Corporate Officer before, where are the maximums? And of course, as the Mayor's saying, these are consolidations, and so the maximums in the original act.
Okay.
Or original bylaw, excuse me.
Okay. With that, I'll take a motion for the third reading. Councillor S, go ahead.
I move third reading, Municipal Different Information Authorization Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 697.
Moved by Councillor X, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All comment? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
It's great coordination, you two. First and second, third.
And with that, we have no other business. There's no time for question period. I'll take a motion. Oh, sorry. We have two PICs. Just want to note the supplemental information. We have a note from Bev Bacon regarding the community planning recommendations, the groundwater protection, as well as correspondence from both Bev Bacon and Alison Leduc regarding the enhanced riparian area protection. I'll take a motion to receive for information. Moved by Councillor Dawson, second by Councillor Epp. With thank you for reminding me. All in favor? Opposed? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Rob. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Seemed like a really long meeting. It's not even 10 yet, so.